I'm a marketer, and every day our company helps our clients solve business problems like this. Oops, too fast. We developed a name, identity, and advertising program for an architectural salvage store. We developed a 10-word novel campaign for a book festival to help increase their attendance at their annual event. And this is a program we call Talk About Giving, which is meant to encourage parents to talk openly and honestly with their young children about the importance of the giving spirit. We produce this type of work every day, but what's remarkable about this type of work is that it was produced for free, for charity, in 24 hours. It's an example of a little idea, that went on to transform the very character and destiny of a company. And here's how it got started. One night about 15 years ago, my good friend and business partner, Kathy Minetti, and I were working late in the office, and the phone rang. Kathy answered the phone and said something suitably witty, like, "Riggs, we never close." She got off the phone, and we laughed at each other and went on home that night. And the next morning, I walked into her office, and I said, "You know, last night when you said something about having us stay up all night and catch up on our work?" And she gave me this look like, "Oh, my God, what has she thought of now?" And I said, "Well, I've decided that we need to do it." And then she really gave me the stare down. And I said, "But here's the deal. We need to do it for charity." And from that little one exchange came the brainstorm of an idea that came to be known as Create-a-thon. Create-a-thon did not happen overnight, however. There were a million reasons that we could never pull this off. The big idea was to establish a 24-hour pro bono marketing services campaign for nonprofits so that they would have access to professional marketing services. And these were by and large nonprofits that would otherwise not be able to afford these services unless they were provided free of charge. The other idea was that we wanted to have something whereby designers and other folks in the creative arts could have an easy way to channel their creative talents for social good. But it didn't happen overnight. Kathy and I debated the issue for several days, as we are wont to do. And there was question after question, starting with, what would our employees say? Would they think that we had totally lost our minds to ask them to stay up all night for 24 hours for free? How would we ever decide what types of nonprofits would get to become beneficiaries of this program? What would we do about the other requests for nonprofit pro bono work that we got throughout the year? What would we say to those folks? And lastly, what would we do and how would we ever administer a program like this as a small business without it running us out of business? We knew that it would take a lot of administrative support to do this and to do it well. And we also worried, quite frankly, about whether or not showing that our work could be done in 24 hours would devalue the work that we do for clients on a day-to-day basis. And we said, at the end of the day, what really matters is what our team says, how they respond. So we went to the folks who worked with us, and we were very blessed and fortunate to be surrounded by a group of people who were committed to giving back to the community and who were totally game on to the idea of doing this work for free in 24 hours. So then the next thing was, how will we ever decide? What kind of process will we put in place? How do we administer this? And so we sent out a call for entries and just started asking nonprofits in the community if they would be willing to fill out an application, let us know what their marketing needs were, and that we would go through that and select some beneficiaries. And in that very first year of Create-a-thon, our very first all-nighter, we selected 11 beneficiaries, 11 nonprofits in the Midlands to stay up all night long and do work for. So having that application and selection process behind us, we then got ready to work all night long. This is a look from the very first Create-a-thon. We still don't know what Amy Warder was on that night, but she brought lots of fun and got us through the night. I think this was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and she was a great joy to be around. And but this very first Create-a-thon taught us an awful lot about ourselves, about our business, and about our community as a whole. And those were things like, when you think that you've got an absolutely insurmountable amount of work to do, something amazing really happens when everyone is on mission. Our mission was to produce the best and most work of our lives in 24 hours. And we did it. Secondly, we learned that any great idea can overcome any set of limitations. We had no money, no time, and precious little manpower, but we made it happen. And lastly, we learned that when your heart is totally behind the work that you're doing, we were amazed by the work that these nonprofits were doing. That work became way too much fun to be considered work. And so we found ourselves starting to produce work like this for nonprofits through Create-a-thon. This is actually an identity from the very first Create-a-thon in 1998 for a teen pregnancy prevention program, an anti-bullying campaign for Girl Scouts, a brochure vernacular that we created during Create-a-thon because we didn't have enough money to print a poster and a brochure, so we did a brochure. We did it all together for a West African dance troupe. Brilliant, if I say so. This was a call for entries for an architectural design competition for Saluda Shoals Amphitheater. Some identity work through Create-a-thon. And this was a poster. We developed the name and program for an outdoor event for dogs from a couple of animal protection agencies. Now, when we started to produce this work, we really didn't know how these nonprofits were going to react to it. We knew that they would be grateful for having this type of work produced for them, and we knew that we would be helping them meet basic marketing needs. But we weren't prepared for how they would emotionally respond to this work. They came in and saw this work after we had been up for 24 hours, and not surprisingly, there were a lot of smiles, a fair number of hugs, and then there were tears. And we were not prepared for that at all. But we found the truth of the power of Create-a-thon in those tears that were shed, because it proved to us that these folks and working in nonprofits with such noble causes every day are so appreciative of any small gift. We just had a little offering of logos and brochures and things like that, that their emotional response, those tears that were shed, really impacted them in ways we had never imagined. And it was really in that moment when those first tears were shed that I believe we were forever changed as a company. So we went on to make Create-a-thon an annual event. We had great fun with it over the years and held the event locally. And as we started getting toward our 5th anniversary, we began to ask ourselves a very important question. And that was, does Create-a-thon belong to us, Riggs? Our volunteer base had grown here in Columbia. We'd gotten great response from the program, certainly from the nonprofit community and from the business community in general. But we knew down deep that it had great potential. And we asked ourselves what we were going to do with that. And we started wondering what would happen if we started inviting other ad agencies, design firms, interactive shops, etc., if they would like to host Create-a-thon events in their area. Now understand, this went against the grain of everything we, and certainly myself, had been taught as a marketer, because you're taught that your ideas are all you have, and you better protect them at every cost. But we said, we just can't do that. We don't know what will happen. It may backfire. Again, there are a million reasons that if we start opening this thing up to other people, we'll lose control over it. And we just weren't really sure about that. But we spit shook and got on the phone and started calling other agencies around the country. And to our surprise, they said, absolutely, we are game on to that. We are more than ready to do that. And since 2002, the first year that we started asking others to participate in Create-a-thon, today our national Create-a-thon network has grown to over 75 agencies and corporations that have participated in the program. It's gone from 11 nonprofits that were served in that very first Create-a-thon by Riggs to over 1,200 nonprofits that have been served and we estimate the market value of this pro bono work to be in the neighborhood of about $15 million. It's been wonderful for us to get to know our Create-a-thon partners throughout North America. We've actually had agencies scattered throughout the U.S. and Canada and Puerto Rico, which is just cool. And the work that they've brought to the table has been incredibly inspired, and it's been very interesting for us to see how our peers in the industry attack a lot of the same types of problems that we have in our own community. And it's a very interesting thread, I think, to see how we've all come together in this. But more than the work itself, I think, it's been very beneficial and very rewarding for us to hear stories from our other partner agencies, personal stories about how the Create-a-thon experience has moved them to put their creative talents to work out in the world. So Create-a-thon as a network began to grow, and then in 2006 a funny thing happened. We were joined at Create-a-thon here in Columbia one year by a USC design professor, and she was so moved by her experience that she came to us and said, with your permission, I would like to try my hand at developing a course curriculum for undergraduate students and to see if they could do Create-a-thon. And not being academicians, we readily said absolutely. And the result of that was Create-a-thon on campus. Create-a-thon on campus was born at Virginia Commonwealth University. It's now in its 4th year. It's gone on, the curriculum itself, which is 2 semesters long, teaches students the value of nonprofits, their role in society, and it also gives them a great opportunity to do work that matters as part of their portfolio. And it's now gone on and has been put in place both at James Madison University and UT Chattanooga. And of course, the work that the students have done stands up against any that we've seen from professionals, know-it-all professionals like us. We've also gone on to work with professional organizations, ad clubs, PRSA groups, and that type of thing, as well as in-house marketing corporations. And a good example of that comes from our friends at Discovery Channel. Last year, I got a call one day, and someone said, someone from Discovery Channel is on hold for you. And I went, excuse me, got to get that. And they said, we've heard about Create-a-thon, and we have shared the marathon model with executives in our corporate social responsibility area. And they have challenged those of us in marketing at Discovery to do the same type of thing here with our U.S. marketing department. And they asked if they could come shadow us during Create-a-thon last year. And I said, well, you're more than welcome to come, but if you come, I'm going to put you to work. You cannot come shadow. And so they came and were delightful and were wonderful members of our team. And they took what they learned in that Create-a-thon last year, went back to their headquarters in Salisbury, Maryland, and developed their own version of Create-a-thon called Discovery Impact Creating Change. And that year, their staff of about 220 marketing folks in that office adopted 44 nonprofits and did a lot of interesting things that day, like developing seminars and that type of thing and workshops, in bringing folks in. So this is now in its second year. Just last year, it won a national award in corporate social responsibility. So we have seen so much good come from our willingness, our being able to get beyond our control freak nature as marketers and putting our idea out there. And everywhere we turn, we have met so many wonderful people who are so committed to the pro bono movement in the U.S., and it's been exceptionally gratifying. And just a few of those are, for example, Taproot Foundation is in New York, and they have been a very great supporter of Create-a-thon. And just last year, they included Create-a-thon in a study of the 8 top hot models of corporate social responsibility in the U.S. Closer to home, for those of us in marketing, AIGA, American Institute of Graphic Artists, really rolled out their own pro bono program this year called Design for Change, and they have endorsed Create-a-thon as a great way for the design community to get involved in providing pro bono service. And just recently, this fall, we were contacted by a group in D.C. called A Billion Plus Change. This is an initiative that comes both out of the George H.W. Bush administration with the Points of Light Institute, as well as the George Bush administration with the National Corporation for Community Service. And they called and said that they were developing this program whereby they were challenging U.S. corporations to donate $1 billion+ worth of pro bono service in the next 2 years. And they said that they were having a launch event in D.C. this fall and would like to know if we, on behalf of Create-a-thon, would come to the launch event and sit on a panel to talk with folks about pro bono. And they said, I'll send you a list of the other people who are already coming and who are on the panel. And I got it. It was a list of about 20 folks, and it was folks like HP, Dow, Corning. Those were just the people I was supposed to sit on the panel with. And I called them back and I said, hello, I've gotten the list, and do you understand that we are not they? We're just a little ad agency in Columbia, South Carolina. And the executive director laughed and said, I'm fully aware. I have heard about Create-a-thon. I know who you are, and I want you to come and be the voice of small business at the table. Because and you know, to this day, this was in November, and I have yet to get over that comment. Because who would have known that our little itty-bitty crazy idea, Create-a-thon, could sit at the same table, be mentioned in the same breath as the corporate social responsibility programs of these Fortune 100 companies. But it's like the head of Global Corporate Social Responsibility from HP turned to me during the panel and said, you know, Teresa, what I think is interesting is that 15 years ago when you all came up with the idea for Create-a-thon, nobody was talking about pro bono. And nobody was certainly talking about corporate social responsibility. And I said, you know, that's true. We just thought it was a cool way to give back to the community. And but it has changed us in very profound ways, that little idea. And it changed us as a company in that I believe that we lost our fear. We lost our fear of thinking big, of putting things out there. And that's what I want to challenge you with today. I'm not here to talk you into developing a pro bono program for your company, although that would be wonderful. What I am here to do is to encourage you to dig down deep, to find that kernel, that thing that inspires you and your company. And then when you've got that thing identified, I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, I want you to build a big, fat idea around it. The more outrageous, the better. Create-a-thon was never supposed to happen. There were a million reasons why. Number 2, in the words of Nike, I want you to just do it. Just get on with it. And don't let perfection paralyze progress. Number 3, I want you to build scale around it, because we live in a world that demands collaboration and sharing through events like this if we're ever going to change and address the social and business problems that we have. And a great example of those 3 things at work is where we are today. Somebody had the great idea of bringing people together, sharing great ideas. They had the idea to execute it through online video, and then they built scale around it by developing a franchise program to give communities just like us the opportunity to come together and have the types of conversations that we're having today. So dig down deep, find that big idea, and then ask yourself, what can happen when I do come up with this idea? What can it mean to me and my business? I think you'll find that it can certainly distinguish your own business in the marketplace. You can begin to attract employees that have the same values you do. We absolutely found that to be true. And you can build goodwill for your brand in the long term. And who knows, maybe one day you'll find that you really can change the world overnight. Thank you.